Hey guys, what's up? It's Lizzy Jane, and you are tuning in to the last live episode from our SolFest live series. We have AVELLO joining me on the podcast this week. Last but not least, AVELLO is Orlando-based rising electronic producer, DJ, and songwriter. It was really awesome to sit down and speak with someone who is from a similar area to me. I went to college and finished up school in Orlando. So it's amazing to see people who are rising and coming out of that same area. He is so talented. He's had releases on Bassrush, Lost in Dreams, Subsidia, you name it. We talk about his musical background, his upbringing, his love for electronic music, how the AVELLO project started, and so much more. So get ready to tap in. You are tuning into the Lizzy Jane Podcast with special guest AVELLO. Hey guys, so lately I've seen a ton of larger shows I've been playing at that a lot of these festivals and venues are no longer allowing bags that are not clear. Well, guess what? Lunchbox Packs is coming in clutch again. They have just stepped up their anti-theft bags by releasing a fully clear hydration pack and snack pack. This is an absolute game changer for your summer festivals and events. Each bag is made out of TPU material that is incredibly durable, flexible, and made to not alter under extreme sun exposure over time. You also have the option to bring a skin in your bag on the way in, and once you're through that security line, you can zip on your skin for privacy of your belongings and to add some extra personalized fun flair. These hydration packs meet the majority of all festival regulations and guidelines. As always, these packs have all of the awesome anti-theft features as the original hydration and snack packs. Make sure you use code LizzyJane for $10 off any hydration pack and code LizzyJ for $5 off any snack pack. I will see you at the rave. The show today was brought to you by Vitaplur E-Boost Gum. With no pill to take or powders to mix, Vitaplur E-Boost Gum is a first-of-its-kind energy rave supplement that provides magnesium, electrolytes, and antioxidants while you chew. Vitaplur is the perfect complement to my active lifestyle, whether it's at the festival, on the road touring, or hitting the gym. Chew Vitaplur and dance with confidence. Use code LizzyJane for 10% off any order.
All right, Adam, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to finally make this happen. We've been talking about it for a while.
Yeah, this has actually been a goal of mine for a really long time, like the last year or two. I love your podcast, so it's cool to be here today.
I really appreciate it. I kind of have seen your name like up and down kind of Florida regional, national kind of waves. You've been making these crazy bootleg remixes that are just insane. I played quite a few of them. I remember I had my first show back in a while at the end of January, and we're all in this like big edit Discord group. You know what I'm talking about?
Edit Club.
Yeah, the Edit Club. Shout out Cello. Shout out Marcel. He's absolutely wonderful. And I came across your all's edits, and I was like, yo, this is hard as fuck. And then I kind of looked into your project, and it was super dope. So anybody who's listening who may not know you, you're at AVELLO.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me again. That support is awesome. Like you said, shout out to the Edit Club, shout out to Cello. Those guys are crazy.
Absolutely. I mean, I woke up. I was in Tampa 2 weeks ago for the first time that I was coming back to Tampa, and I played at TK Lounge. Shout out TK Lounge. We love that place. And I woke up from a nap after like being awake all night traveling from Denver to Tampa, and I had this message from Poopies from Jackass saying, yo, your podcast is going to be there. My homie AVELLO really wants to get on. Let's figure this out. I'm like, holy fuck. Like, okay, sounds good. And then I'm glad we were able to do it. So let me know, give us some background information just on you. I don't know you very well. So like musical influences, have you been in music your whole entire life? How'd you get into EDM, build your project? I would just kind of dump it on us.
Yeah, so I started making music, taking it seriously about 4.5 years ago. Prior to that, no musical experience, just a ton of YouTube and a good couple years of just wanting to snap my laptop in half.
All it takes.
You know how it goes.
All it takes.
Yeah, you know how it goes, that first learning curve. Anyone out there getting into it or starting, just power through that, I promise you. You just gotta get over that hump and then it'll come to you. So back when I was young, 10 years old or so, I hated electronic music. I was raised on like classic rock, like AC/DC, Led Zeppelin.
Me too.
Yeah, that's what my parents loved. And anything electronic was just not my taste. And over the next 10 years, that evolved. And then here we are, man. I mean, some of my biggest influences these days are Millennium, Hex Cougar, Pauline Hare. She's killing it right now. Yeah, I've been very influenced by those sounds. And for the last 4.5 years, just been hammering YouTube and working every single day. And that work is just now starting to come to fruition. So it's really awesome that you see things start to ramp up.
Nothing is an overnight success. No project is an overnight success, as opposed to what many think or say from the outside. So, into your musical inspirations, tell me about your story. You know, we kind of talked previously, classic rock, got into EDM. Was there a concert? Was there a festival? Was there an artist that really inspired you? Like, hey, I really would love to do this.
Yeah, so the biggest turning point for me was Millennium's 2017 album, Awake. I was in and out of electronic music. I was fans of Odessa and Flume and the more, I would say, mainstream friendly acts. Yep. And then my buddy Skylar sent me Millennium's album. And I remember sitting in class that day, senior year of high school, my head was down on the desk and just the first song shot straight up in my chair. Something about that just clicked with me, and I just needed to know the magic behind what went into that.
Absolutely, and Millennium is one of those very rare acts where it crosses so many lines where you can walk into an Urban Outfitters and hear Millennium, or you could walk up to a stage at Ultra and hear Millennium. And especially in like the bass world, kind of future bass, melodic bass, there's very few acts that have been able to do that on such a huge scale. And I feel like that's an ode to just really combining a lot of, you know, just how we talked. Millennium, Nick, he has tons of musical influences. You can see him working with bands like Spirit Box and also bringing rappers on. And he's really kind of breaking down those like genre boundary walls and looking to expand and bring new crowds into, I would say, just like electronic dance music in general. I know Millennium was kind of one of the first artists I really heard on like 97X and Tampa and, you know, all of those things. And it's definitely an inspiration to see that it's possible now, because it didn't really used to be. I didn't really hear huge electronic dance music acts, whether it was Skrillex or Cloud on Stroke or X, Y, and Z, on the radio and on commercials. And now it's really everywhere. So it's so exciting. We're in this time where it's the easiest and hardest to be an artist, because we have TikTok and we have YouTube and we have Instagram and we have Twitter, and there's so many ways to get our stuff out there. Discord, Reddit, all of that. However, it's like, how are we going to be unique enough to really stand out among the masses? And I know you've collaborated with a lot of people in like Tampa and Orlando. You know, did you know dubstep and kind of that melodic future-based sound was going to be your thing, or is it just something that came over time?
That 100% was my idea from the beginning. I have this vision for the project that I'm still actively trying to achieve, and it's still actively evolving, but I have always known that I knew my lane was in that melodic, emotional scene. And my ultimate goal is to bring the heavy styles and melodic styles together into a singular, cohesive sound. Not in a sense of having like a melodic dubstep drop followed by a dubstep drop, but I want them to be seen as one.
Yeah.
Cohesive. And I think there's a few artists that are doing a great job of that right now. I think Hex Cougar is doing an amazing job of that right now. He's so amazing, so unique. One of my biggest inspirations at the moment. And that's currently what I'm moving towards.
I love that. And, you know, kind of paint a picture technically for us. Do you work in Ableton? Are you in another doc?
Yes, Ableton. All day.
All day. Love it. Ableton, baby, all the way. Best layout. You know, when you talk about kind of combining those melodic and heavier dubstep structured songs, you know, very often you'll see an Excision or you'll see a Wooly kind of go melodic and heavy. You know, they'll have like a part A and then a build up and, you know, 8/16 measures into something super melodic, or vice versa. When you're approaching the way that you structure a lot of these bootlegs, like hearing, you know, the RL Grime one go off and just such like a pristine club system, you have that low end so tuned in. You know, are you doing something where you're kind of focusing on these, I would say, kind of crunchy mid basses, and then you have like the lead and sustain over it, or how's your approach?
I would say the specific bass you're referring to, shout out to my boy H for putting me
It's
on.
like, wah, wah, wah. It's so good.
Yeah, shout out to my boy H for putting me on these techniques. But it's basically clipping the track very, very hard. And it gets that crunchy sound, you know, with maybe a plugin like G-Clip or...
I was literally about to say, are you running into G-Clip?
Yeah, G-Clip is great for that style, but my approach lately has been to have some melodic element, whether that be a lead or a vocal chop, on top of a very heavy, aggressive bass. And I think that Renegade clip that you're referring to, that was a collab clip between H and I, and that's where he kind of helped me unlock that side of the sound.
I mean, it's phenomenal. It definitely takes people by storm because you can always tell, especially for the first time when you really play something out, you're like, oh, is this gonna go off? Is this gonna really get a crowd going? And when you have the complexity and duality of, you know, such a strong kind of crunchy, exactly you said, clipping bass that's at like +6 or whatever, like so technically throwing everything out the window, but then having those beautiful chopped vocals on top of it. I mean, that's really good, 100% of the time. I'm a huge fan of people pushing that sound right now. I know you just had a remix drop for my girl Maddie O'Neill too, right?
Yes.
How was that to work on it? Did it kind of get presented to you, or did you kind of reach out to her and say like, hey, can I submit something? You know, how did that go?
So we connected on SoundCloud, or maybe it was TikTok, I believe. And she then reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in remixing anything off of her upcoming album. So she sent me the album, took a listen. That particular track, Change of Pace, just really stood out to me. I loved the vocal from Moons. And she sent the stems over, and it was done in, I think, like 36 hours. And I think that all of my favorite projects are done, you know, start to finish, 48 hours. There would be some tweaking on the end of that. But for the most part, I don't know about you, but the songs that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna come back to this and finish it next month, never seems to
Nothing
work
ever
out.
happens.
Yeah, everything just happens like real quick like that. Yeah, that was an amazing opportunity from her. I think that was the biggest remix that I've done to date. My first official remix, actually. Now that I
So
think about it.
exciting. It's always a cool moment when you're like, oh, this like kick-ass artist wants me to put my take on a song. I love remixes and bootlegs for that reason exactly, because sometimes you just listen to songs and you're like, wow, I love the original, but I keep hearing this thing in my head that I could create. And it's kind of like this form of collaboration without actually collaborating with the artist, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where it's like, hey, like I'm taking your idea and I'm putting my twist on it and kind of like my impersonation of what I can offer to what you've already established and like brought to the forefront and already released and stuff. And it's always a lot of fun to play around with other vocals. And it seems like you're a very kind of like vocally inspired, driven artist.
Yes.
Have you had the chance to work with live vocalists yet? Do you kind of have that in plans for the future? Like where do you source a lot of your acapellas from for original music?
Yeah, I've had the chance to work with several amazing vocalists. I have several songs with Sky Solansky, several songs with Madeline Austin. She's an upcoming Orlando local as well. And both of those artists are fantastic. And then I have a lot of original vocal tracks coming out this upcoming year. I think like 8 or 10
Oh, that's so exciting.
coming up. Yeah, it's amazing. You know, creating this instrumental, sending it over to a vocalist like that and watching them put it into words and give it that life on top, you know?
Vocalists are so important, and you know, I talked to Sarah Benya, who's also in your management group, and like Aileen and Danny King and Soundar, and it's just something where the general consumer, as we're kind of all stuck in this little world of production, you know, we're listening for the snares and we're listening for the post-processing, but people who just love music, they're listening to the vocals and they're listening to that like moment in a song. Millennium again is a great example of where they can really attach themselves to a hook or a chorus or a pre-drop. You know, you go all the way from Millennium to, I just had Riot 10 on the other morning before he was in Denver, and like the I'm a Fucking Headbanger song, like that's something where that made that whole song, that made that whole entire track. So the vocals are so important, and it gives, again, another way to really collaborate with the artist without really kind of sitting down with them and going, oh, we're going to choose this sample, and oh, we're going to do this method of sound design. So with you working in Ableton, you know, are you a big sampling person? Are you a big sample person in general? Or do you really love sound design and kind of starting from there, like using VSTs from scratch? Like, how's your layout?
Pretty much all of my melodics are done through sound design. I only have Serum
Love it.
I swear when I see them, I think some people often get caught up in, I need this tool, that tool, this synth, that synth.
You don't.
At the end of the day, they all pretty much do the same thing, and I think it's important to master one and build your skills as opposed to building your arsenal there. So a lot of my all my synths, my leads, my melodies, those are all from sound design. And I have a few very specific kind of scream style leads that I use in almost every track. And that is what I'm trying to build my signature sound around.
I love that. So like I'm a big person of like consistency too. Like whenever I teach students, or it's kind of like, oh, how do you make this track sound cohesive? It's like, well, you need to build like this arsenal of racks that pertain to your sound, and that's why I feel like there's such a, not contradiction, but there's so much knowledge and information out there now, whether it's master classes or YouTube or Patreon, where a lot of these artists give away their racks and their mastering chains, and this is how I post-process, and this is how I made a song, and it's just kind of like, it's great collecting all of those and seeing what those do, and like seeing how you can visually obtain that knowledge of, oh, this is what this sounds like when I put Camel Crusher on it, freeze, flatten it, see the difference in the waveform. Teaching that way, but also understanding that those racks were made to fit a certain sound, and those racks were made for a specific song. So just because they're there doesn't mean it fits for you. And that's kind of how I look at presets and racks. It's like, use it, collect it, name it, but also don't be afraid to change it and like manipulate it and do your own thing with it. So for the screech basses, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Camel Crusher. Like, I live by that shit. Unfortunately, it's not available on Mac anymore. It's literally like a dead interface, and I like cry for my kids who can't like use it because it's just like an all-in-one. Here you go. Are there some like favorite kind of post-processing techniques you have, like OTT, saturation, or VSTs that you kind of like ode to that sound?
I love Portal. Have you used
Portal's the shit. Yeah.
You can put anything in the Portal and you just are going to have an insane result. Everything. You never know what you're going to get looking through the Portal presets, messing with the algorithms in there. It's just so cool. And then taking those little sounds.
See it all.
Yeah. Resampling them in some other way. Like, one of my favorite methods to get creatively inspired is maybe taking a cool melody loop or a cool bass loop and running it through Portal and just, letting 64 bars run and just see what comes out. Maybe take like little snippets, use those sounds. That's my go-to method when I feel like I'm tackling writer's block.
Absolutely, and writer's block is a whole different thing because you kind of really have to time that, especially as an up-and-coming act, where you have to realize that your branding is important, your social media is important, playing shows are important, but also not playing too many shows and releasing music consistently. It's a lot to balance when you don't have, a lot of us coming up have jobs for, financial stability. It takes a lot to really build a project, just like a business. And is there something that you kind of use as a root of inspiration and motivation when you're kind of having those like writer block times? Like, do you watch movies? Do you do something in projection? Do you kind of use reference tracks? Like, where do you start at?
There are times, sessions that I take when I have writer's block and I'm like, hey, I'm just gonna go in and just make something for fun. No pressure to like fit a genre, no pressure, oh, I need to get another release ready. Just make something crazy silly, like some hyper pop dubstep, something fun. And that always helps me break through it. I think another important tactic that I employ is don't force yourself too much. Don't be afraid to take a week or two away, go listen to a ton.
Breaks are so important.
Yeah, go listen to a ton of new music, refresh your inspiration, come back with a fresh perspective, and 9 times out of 10, that'll get me through it,
Absolutely. I'm the same way. I'm a huge advocate of breaks. I definitely have reached a few burnout periods in the full journey. I think as everybody does, you really have to, I think Blossom was sitting here yesterday and she said, you have to experience life to be able to go and write about it and have things to inspire you. And if you're just kind of like sitting in your room with 4 walls, which does work for some people, I'm not one of those people, you're not really getting that like sunlight outdoors, going to shows, seeing people who inspire you to continue writing, like coming to festivals. I always walk away from festivals no matter what I'm doing being like, all right, this is awesome. I feel super inspired. Like, let's go home and work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you try to force it, you kind of lose an authenticity from writing when you're inspired or in a moment that you've created that inspiration for yourself. People, force it, they'll follow that formula. Hey, I always do this sort of intro, this sort of verse, this sort of build, this sort of drop, and crank out tracks but I think it's much more important to have one really authentic, unique track than to have forced yourself to write 10 that are following a formula.
Absolutely, and I think that's very kind of, I meet a lot of artists that have 40 demos and they end up picking 6 and they're like, let's run with it. And then I have a lot of artists that are like, I'm going to put everything I have into this one track and I'm going to perfect it until it's perfect. And you may not get 6 tracks, you may just get 1, but it's like an actual record and it's something you're going to remember. Because I think now, and I'm sure you kind of struggle with this just as much as I do, where a lot of people release a lot of things that sound exactly the same, you know, quarter note basses, sustain on the top, very love Subsidia, shout out Subsidia, but very Subsidia. And it's like, why are these unique? Why are these going to take the place of all of the big dogs that are releasing music that sounds exactly like this? You're never going to grow. You're never going to elevate to surpass their project in the future. So, you know, it's so important now more than ever to really take that time to develop yourself as an act and be like, okay, well, why am I really doing this? What is my true sound? And go on from there. And like you yourself, where you're kind of building in the Florida market now, I think exactly what you did. And you're playing some shows elsewhere, but a lot of this kind of like Southeast region, you know, orientated. What are some like pieces of, not necessarily advice, but it's really easy, especially in a state like Florida, to get sucked up in Florida forever. Because there's Miami, you've got Jacksonville, you've got Tally, you've got Orlando, you've got Tampa, and you've got national acts coming through there every weekend. You know, what is the approach that you and your team has kind of take to make sure that people know you're there and you're actively growing, but you're not playing local shows every single week, or you're not playing like support at the Vanguard every other week, which is totally doable, or like Ritz, or, you know, the Browns in Miami, or at Myth in Jacksonville. A lot of people just can't seem to elevate past there. You know, what's your approach that you guys are taking now?
I think our approach to elevating past that point is not relying on, you know, I need to meet this person, meet that person, but creating good music and releasing it consistently. Because once people start to recognize that, it kind of, everything else falls into place. You know, the right people are going to reach out to you, the right opportunities are going to come your way. And if you go and make these connections before you have the product to back it up, it's not going to really take you anywhere.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people definitely get ahead of themselves, where it's like, DJing is definitely an art in itself and it's really respected. And at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of great producers that don't necessarily know how to put their own discography into a set clearly, especially when you're starting out and you're like, wow, my mix sounds are not like Seven Lions mix sounds, or my mix sounds are not, you know, my master doesn't look like Millennium's, you know, and it never should be. It's definitely like a process over time. But a lot of people are like, okay, I can get the shows, but you don't have anything for like fans to attach themselves to. It's really hard being a local or regional act, or even a direct support act on a tour, and not have anything for like your fans to really attach themselves to, or like retain those fans to move on from that one club show.
Yeah, that's something I've thought about a lot. I mean, if you play a big show and people enjoyed your live performance, they might go look you up. And if you don't have solid music, you know, on Spotify, on SoundCloud to back your name up, then you just turned a list. You just lost a potential fan, essentially, you know, because they were interested, but they didn't have anything to continue that with outside of your performance. You know, listen to it in the car every day, get to know you. And I think that's just so important, is build that discography, build your skills, release music consistently, and focus on that product. And then the business side of things, the opportunities will fall into place.
I totally agree. It definitely is like, at the end of the day, I wish music played a bigger part in kind of what we do, but it is definitely kind of like a pizza puzzle pie of a lot of different shit that has to be really on point for you to elevate to that next level. But music will always be the basis of it. Don't have good music, if you don't have a good progression, you know, sonically things aren't in line, a lot of times, you know, you can't retain those listeners like you wanted to. And it takes a long time. Hell, I'm even still there. I have an 8-track EP coming out, starting singles next month, that is a huge sonic change for my project. Once, it takes a while to be like, hey, I know how to make this, I know how to make this, I know how to make that, but what is going to be me forever? And can I do this at a professional level and grow and reinvent myself forever? Especially in a scene where there's just so many inspiring producers. But it's super exciting. I feel like your name just keeps kind of coming up on various platforms. is there anything that we can look forward to in the future? Like update us on shows, when can we expect new music?
Yeah, I'm in Minneapolis next weekend with Chime and Skybreak.
Love them, Landon, love the whole crew.
Music. I haven't met them in person, so I'm very excited. I'm a big fan of them.
They're sweethearts. They're little nerds. They're sweethearts. They're great.
That's awesome. I've heard nothing but good things about both of them. And then headlining a fest in Kentucky, headlining a fest in Wisconsin, and then I'm performing at Moonrise. I'll be in phase 2, I guess.
Oh, so exciting.
I just leaked that.
No, that's great. This is
if
perfect.
you're listening at home,
this will be out when it's already.
Don't tell anybody.
I love it. No, I love it. That's so exciting. Okay, new music.
Okay, so new music. Yeah, I got a release coming up this month on Circus. I got another one that we've been sitting on for like a year and a half coming out next month. And I'm so hyped for this one. It's called Ghost. I'm gonna send it to you since we're done. Would love to hear what you think, but I'm so hyped for that song. And then I'm actually I'm sitting on 12 or so finished tracks right now, and release them about once a month. But to be honest with you, I'm getting kind of frustrated because I don't want to sit on music for a year.
Welcome to the game, AVELLO.
Yeah, but by the time it's out, you hate it. But it's also great to have like a huge unreleased discography.
It's great, especially with where you're building and the lane you're in. Like having that arsenal is you being overly prepared. And if labels are the thing that's holding you up, you have to reach out and try and get an independent deal with a distributor like Symphonic or Create. And then you have to, it's hard when you're kind of like that growing act because you don't have priority and you don't have like, oh, we're going to prioritize you over everybody. You kind of have to take a seat on the back burner. If it doesn't fit in your timeline, you have to put a timeline on it. Because I'm the same way. I've had tracks come out year 12, 13 months later. I'm like, wow, I'm so much better than this. This isn't an accurate representation of where the project's at. But that's just how it works sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like 6 months is like the sweet spot to kind of be playing. And you have a few backed up, but it's also not super behind on your sound as you're releasing them. And you mentioned labels and independent releasing. I feel like that's a huge thing. A lot of people, they lose faith in their own work when it gets rejected by a few labels and they end up not releasing amazing songs. And that's one thing, that I really enjoy is dropping an independent track, and it doesn't matter if it gets 1,000 plays, it doesn't matter if it gets 500 plays, just sharing your work, knowing it's out there, to me at least, is validating, feels good, just put it out,
Absolutely. I mean, if you're making your own music, you can always make more. That's what I always say. It's kind of like, you have a job, you spend the money, you can always make more money. And it's something where I definitely struggle with that. You have a track and you're like, oh my God, this is just such a great track and nobody's interested. Just put it out. The more that you make, the more that you're going to have the opportunity and the probability of you making a hit. 100%.
Yeah, let's say you put out 10 tracks independent. They all don't do as well as you hoped, but then you drop an 11th track that pops off, and then people go and check you out. And then you are there with 10 awesome tracks they can now discover, as opposed to just having that one pop off and they go and you don't have anything else to follow it up with. So I think just dropping your music, label or not, 1,000 plays or 100,000 plays, none of it matters. Just get it out there, share it. One way to try to jump ahead of this, year and a half schedule we're on is I'm thinking about putting together an EP. I have several songs that just fit so well together, and seeing everybody drop some killer EPs lately, like Enzo's got one around the corner. It's gonna be the first 3 singles are already mind blowing. Pauline Harris dropped a sick EP. Jules has an album on the way. It's inspiring me to put together a larger body of work.
Absolutely. I mean, it's definitely the way to really concretely focus on an artistic vision, 100%, because you can really make a journey and make a story. It's very much so like a set. You're like, who are you? Take me through a journey, write an intro, write 5 singles, write an outro, and it's stuff you can do when you're not just releasing a song a month. It's very exciting. But AVELLO, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
I'm so excited we got to do this, and the setup's great, and I'm interested and looking forward to seeing your project grow even more, and can't wait to play out more bootlegs. I'm very excited, and you'll have to send me music when you have it.
Oh yeah, I'm pumped for your EP coming out soon. Yeah, thank you again for having me.
Absolutely, thank you so much, dude. See ya.